On one side of the debate, the local American Civil Liberties Union and 8 other community groups. They want a series of open forums and a panel that includes community members to interview candidates. The ACLU's Christy Hill says their plan prioritizes transparency and public involvement.
Having the community's voice represented beyond just community forums, which is important. But to have them actually have a voice in selecting and identifying the next police chief is I don't say more important, but is also important.
The city of San Diego wants a slightly different approach. Its timeline also calls for public forums, but the interviewers who may recommend a final candidate won't be identified. City spokeswoman Katie Keach previously told KPBS Midday Edition this was to protect the integrity of the process.
Having a somewhat confidential interview process allows the focus to be on the evaluation of candidates and not on the potential compromisation of interviewers. What we have understood from our research with other cities that have gone through this is that there may be attempts of lobbying potential people who are on the committee.
The panel is the point of contention. The city's timeline, which it does say is subject to change, currently calls for a closed panel, and the coalition's method calls for an open committee. Hill says the coalition's proposal pulled information from chief searches in 11 other cities across the country, from Seattle to Chicago. That included Dallas, which allowed community members to interview finalists, and Phoenix, where a group of identified community members helped interview semifinalists, and then the public interacted with finalists in an open setting.
One of the bigger takeaways from that process was that there wasn't a one-size-fits-all approach. And so, in looking at what Seattle did and Chicago and Tucson, we were able to identify, given what we know is going on in San Diego and what the challenges facing our next police chief will be, what, would be components of a good process here.
The city of San Diego said it researched 9 cities, including 7 in California. Spokeswoman Keach declined an on-camera interview, but said in an email that San Diego's search focused on a diverse selection of cities of a similar size. That included Sacramento, which recently hired the department's first African-American police chief, and West Covina, California, where residents wanted a chief that's familiar with the department, and they got one. But researcher Nelson Lim with the public policy nonprofit RAND Corporation says duplicating processes in other cities may not yield the best result for San Diego because a universal best practice may not actually exist.
One of the reasons is that what is best depends on the context, right? So there could be a study that can tell you what is the common practices for hiring a police chief. But the best practice is very localized, very contextualized.
Lim has worked with government agencies on hiring practices, including San Diego Police Department. He says he's not entirely convinced by the city of San Diego's proposal for a confidential panel.
You want to pick individuals that are morally strong with high integrity, and those individuals I have a hard time imagining that easily will be persuaded by lobbying.
He says the city could set clear rules that evidence of candidate lobbying would result in disqualification. On the other hand, he's also not on board with the coalition's 15-member panel.
The group is too big to gain consensus. When you're hiring a police chief, a lot of candidates, especially top candidates, will have other opportunities. And if you are a very time-consuming and very involved process, then some of the top candidates may withdraw or not consider putting in their applications.
But he does suggest the panelists be publicly known.
Do you see or know of any reason that you can think of that it would be better to keep that final interview panel secret or confidential until after candidates are proposed?
I cannot think of any one good reason to do that.
The city of San Diego is currently seeking requests for proposal from a recruitment firm to assist in its search. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.